This one makes you want to throw up in a potted plant. Makes me want to stick my head in an oven. So they started going to parents in the Somali community and saying, can we call your child autistic? Can we certify that your child is autistic? If you'll let us do that, we'll pay you a bribe. Anywhere from $400 to $1,500 a child. It's deeply disgusting. I mean, it is clown world on steroids. It makes me want to knee someone in the groin. But the politicians in Minnesota let this happen. It is disgusting, Mr. President. These people ought to all be put in jail, including the politicians.
Public Affairs main Ek Purani bat Suni Jadi Hai. Jab Sawalat Hain. Aksar Unkupiche Waja Hodi Hai. Or Jabbat Sarkari Paisai Kiho. Tanai Grani or Bi Zarori Ho Jadi Hai. Kyan Kuya Paisa Sita Awam Ka Hoda Hai. ISI Lia Ace Mamlet Kyo Nazarindaz Karnakabi Bi Samajari Nai Hatai. IS report main Auge Barn Se Peli. Thora SA Whack Nickel Car Focus Carrion. Chihi AAP Coffee Pie Rahi Han. Pani Yakuch or Ya Breakdown Isa Hai Joe Puri Tawajo Manda Hai. AAJ Hum Surf Headlines Nahi. Balke and Salon Parbat Kar Rahi Hain Joe Aksar Dabadai Jade Hain. Agar AP Hiki Cat Tak Po Hanchni Wali Coverage KO Support Cardi Hain. To like, share, or subscribe Karanabole. AC Kahani and Aksar Mainstream Coverage Main Jagan Nahi Bonapati. Lekin and Kasar Door Tak Jada Hai. Akir Tak Sathrahi. Kyan Kajo Badakir Main Samiati Hai. Wo Puri Tasvir KO Bilkul Nei Rashni Main Dikadeji.
Total in these 3 fraud schemes, these crooks stole $1 billion of taxpayer money. Here's I started to say worst part, but let me amend it. Equally bad part. You say, well, hello, how could this happen? Why didn't the people in the Department of Social Services and the Welfare Department in state government, when they saw these claims arising, why didn't they say something? Didn't they go out and check these businesses that were supposedly sites to feed homeless children? Didn't they go talk to some of the children and their parents to see if some of the children really were autistic? Didn't the state authorities go out and say, can you show us one of the homes that you're providing to the homeless people? After all, we're spending $1 billion. They didn't. Because the politicians wouldn't let them.
Based on what we have found so far, we believe that the Somali fraud operation in Minnesota is the single greatest theft of taxpayer dollars through welfare fraud in American history. We believe that we have only scratched the very top of the surface of how deep this goes. And you're familiar with all the scams with pretending that children have autism who are not in fact autistic, with pretending to enroll people in food programs when in fact nobody was ever enrolled, and engaging in massive fraud, lying, and theft and grift on a scale we've never seen before in American history. The total bill, the total tab for this is going to be far beyond the numbers we've already seen reported. We believe the state government is fully complicit in this scheme, and we believe that what we are going to uncover is going to shock the American people. Look, based on the records that we already have, this is a significant undercount, by the way. 75% of the Somali population in Minnesota is on welfare, but that's likely a significant undercount of just how much of a financial burden the Somali refugee population is imposing.
Well, let me ask
the
situation in my home state of Minnesota, where we've got a number of daycare providers that are openly violating federal and state laws and regulations, taking money for personal use, using the money to set up a fraudulent child care client, and then providing a kickback has been reported. This is a major issue. There are allegations that well, not just several, you've got 23 child care or daycare centers either closed or under investigation. The fraud may go as high as $100 million. Now think about that. In fiscal year 2018, Minnesota received $120 million in federal funding. The state contributed about $50 million in matching and maintenance funds, and we may have a fraud case of nearly $100 million in this state, with money then being transferred out of the country via MSP Airport. This is a big issue in my home state of Minnesota.
This one makes you want to throw up in a potted plant. Makes me want to stick my head in an oven. So they started going to parents in the Somali community and saying, can we call your child autistic? Can we certify that your child is autistic? If you'll let us do that, we'll pay you a bribe. Anywhere from $400 to $1,500 a child. It's deeply disgusting. I mean, it is clown world on steroids. It makes me want to knee someone in the groin. But the politicians in Minnesota let this happen. It is disgusting, Mr. President. These people ought to all be put in jail, including the politicians.
This creates danger. And I'll tell you what, in my time on this, I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. This is shameful. And I have yet to see an elected official, a Republican elected official, say, you're right, that's shameful. He should not say it. So look, I'm worried. We know how these things go. They start with taunts, they turn to violence. I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. This is shameful. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce. So look, I'm worried. We know how these things go. They start with taunts, they turn to violence. So deeply concerned. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce.
Listen.
And Attorney General, I want to get back to this playbook that you outlined from the president of what he does when he's backed into a corner and wants to detract attention. He also, in the past, has historically used isolated instances to justify this language of bigotry and paints with extremely broad brushstrokes and make these generalizations. He has owned in on this investigation into Feeding Our Future, which your office actually prosecuted. I'm wondering if you can set the record straight here and talk a little bit about this investigation and what it entailed and how isolated it actually was.
Well, it was the U.S. Attorney's Office that actually brought the prosecutions. My office contributed and gave evidence and information to advance the prosecution. But I want to say thank you and hats off and congratulations to our colleagues in the U.S. Attorney's Office for a job well done. They've prosecuted over 78 of these.
For years, Americans were reassured that fraud within Minnesota's welfare system was limited and manageable. Officials described it as isolated incidents, small losses that posed no serious threat. First, the estimates hovered around $100 million. Later, that number grew to $250 million. Now, investigative findings point to something far more alarming. Evidence suggesting that taxpayer losses may approach $8 billion. Federal investigators have described it as one of the largest welfare fraud cases ever uncovered in the United States. That raises an unavoidable question. How did this go unnoticed for so long by state authorities? Senator John Kennedy addressed this directly, pointing to repeated failures in basic oversight. According to investigators, required site visits were skipped, documentation was not verified, and claims involving feeding programs, disability services, and housing assistance went largely unchecked. In some cases, facilities listed on official paperwork did not exist at all. These weren't minor administrative errors. They were systemic breakdowns. Critics argue this wasn't simple negligence. It was sustained inaction. Stephen Miller reinforced this concern, stating that available data suggests state leadership was aware of warning signs but failed to intervene. At the same time, Minnesota now faces a projected budget deficit of roughly $3 billion. Taken together, the numbers suggest not just mismanagement, but a system strained by long-term abuse and lack of accountability. When the state's attorney general appeared publicly to address the issue, the focus shifted away from oversight failures and toward accusations of political motivation. He emphasized that prosecutions had occurred, but records show that internal warnings existed years earlier. As far back as 2018, officials were already flagging nearly $100 million in suspected daycare-related fraud. The alerts were documented. The risks were known. Yet meaningful action did not follow. The controversy deepened as public statements surfaced from activists openly claiming political influence and redirecting priorities away from state interests. Remarks like these received little response from political leadership and minimal scrutiny from major media outlets. In other contexts, such statements might have sparked intense debate. Here, they passed largely without challenge. Senator Kennedy summarized the core issue plainly. Public funds intended for vulnerable families were diverted through false claims, fabricated services, and non-existent facilities. According to investigators, some individuals profited while safeguards failed and accountability stalled. Meanwhile, political leaders addressed personal criticism publicly while billions in losses remained largely unaddressed. The broader concern is trust. Until officials who enabled or ignored these failures are fully investigated, critics argue meaningful reform will remain out of reach. Taxpayers deserve transparency. Communities relying on legitimate assistance deserve protection. And oversight must apply equally, without political hesitation. Stay with us for the next report, where we examine documented political donations connected to individuals later charged in these cases, using publicly available records and verified sources. Some details haven't received much attention, but they raise important questions that won't disappear quietly.
This one makes you want to throw up in a potted plant. Makes me want to stick my head in an oven. So they started going to parents in the Somali community and saying, can we call your child autistic? Can we certify that your child is autistic? If you'll let us do that, we'll pay you a bribe. Anywhere from $400 to $1,500 a child. It's deeply disgusting. I mean, it is clown world on steroids. It makes me want to knee someone in the groin. But the politicians in Minnesota let this happen. It is disgusting, Mr. President. These people ought to all be put in jail, including the politicians.
Public Affairs main Ek Purani bat Suni Jadi Hai. Jab Sawalat Hain. Aksar Unkupiche Waja Hodi Hai. Or Jabbat Sarkari Paisai Kiho. Tanai Grani or Bizarori Ho Jadi Hai. Kyankuya Paisa Sita Awam Kahoda Hai. ISI Lia Ace Mamlet Kyo Nazarendaz Karnakabi Bisamajari Nai Hatai. IS report main Auge Barnesi Peli. Thora SA Whack Nickel Car Focus Carrion. Chihi AAP Coffee Pai Rahi Han. Pani Yakuch or Ya Breakdown Isa Hai Joe Puri Tawajo Mandahai. AAJ Hum Surf Headlines Nahi. Balke and Salon Parbat Kar Rahi Hain Joe Aksar Dabadai Jade Hain. Agar AP Hickey Cat Tak Po Hanchni Wali Coverage KO Support Cardi Hain. To like, share, or subscribe Karna Bolain. AC Kahani and Aksar Mainstream Coverage Main Jagan Nahi Bonapati. Lekin and Kasar Door Tak Jada Hai. Akir Tak Sathrahi. Kyun Kajo Badakir Main Sami Adi Hai. Wo Puri Tasvir KO Bilkul Nei Roshni Main Dikadeji.